Hello and welcome to the latest edition of the Football Culture Podcast. For this episode, we're back on mainland Europe and we're focusing on a city and a club in a country we haven't focused on as of yet here on the Football Culture Podcast, and that is Rotterdam in the Netherlands, and the club is Feyenoord. And with me today, I have a special guest. I have Johan Brinkel, who is a Feyenoord fan. So, Johan, tell us a little bit about yourselves and introduce yourself to the listeners.
Hi there. Thanks for having me. First of all, I'm Johan. I'm one of the hosts of the Feyenoord fan podcast Kein Gelul, which we started in 2016 and is in the 10th season right now. So we were the first fan podcast here in Holland, and I've been Feyenoord fan basically all my life. So. Yeah, I love Feyenoord. I like talking about Feyenoord. So I'm very happy to join you and talk about my favorite team.
Okay, great. Yeah, you're in the right place. Okay, so Feyenoord were originally formed. How did the club come about? What was the origins of the club?
Well, we were basically founded in 1908. We had a different name back then. Like many other teams here in Holland, they merged with other clubs, and after a couple of mergers, we became Feyenoord, which is basically called after the district in Rotterdam. It's a part in Rotterdam, so it's basically called after that. And we're formed in the early 1900s, and basically really fast became successful. After 20 years, we had our first. In 1924, we had our first title. But back then, it was hardly competitive at football at all here in Holland. If I read the stories and I look into the history books, but that's how we were formed in 1908.
Yeah, so Feyenoord started winning titles in the 1920s, although I believe Dutch football was amateur at that point. The professional league came in the 1950s. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. We have been amateur football clubs for a long time. The board here in Holland, the governing body, they didn't want to play professional football for quite a long time. So all the good players went abroad to France and Italy and England. And then in 1955, then the Eredivisie was started, and that was basically the introduction of professional football. Even though it was widely known that players already earned some money, but it was illegal and it was not how it should be done. But back then there were already stories that players transferred from the one club to another and basically got some money. Like Chelsea does for a couple of years. Then they had the parents in the books, and they had some taxi driver job or something. I guess that was done here in Holland as well. Feyenoord did it as well in the early years of the 20th century.
Okay, great. Well, Feyenoord are a club from Rotterdam. Now, I saw a documentary a few years ago where they said on this documentary that there's a saying in the Netherlands. While Amsterdam dreams, Rotterdam works, which kind of gives this impression of a gritty, working-class port city compared to them all sitting around in cafes in Amsterdam. Give the listeners an idea what Rotterdam is like as a city, because a previous guest on the podcast had visited Rotterdam and said, no, there's a lot more to the city than that stereotype. What would you say is the essence of Rotterdam as a city?
What the first thing that comes into mind when you talk about Rotterdam, it's a harbor city. It was the biggest harbor for quite some long. Right now, I think some Chinese harbors are bigger, but it's the main gate to mainland of Europe. There's the river the Maas, which runs through Germany and to Swiss and Austria, I guess. So it's a harbor city, which also means we have a lot of companies in the docks. We have a lot of big dock companies, and we are seen as a working class city. We have been throughout all the basically formation of Rotterdam. It's the second biggest city in Holland after Amsterdam. There's always a rivalry, like I guess in every big country, the biggest two cities have a rivalry. For some reason, whenever I look into history and see other countries as well, there's always the rivalry between the two biggest cities, and one of them is always the working class, and the other one is always the fun, easygoing, leisure town. It's, I guess, the same here in Amsterdam or Rotterdam. But Rotterdam is also a very nice city. It was big parts of Rotterdam were bombed in the World War, and they completely rebuilt big parts of Rotterdam. So when you visit Rotterdam, you basically have the old buildings which survived the war, but also the new architecture with some tourist attractions. A lot of tourists have visited Rotterdam the last couple of years. It's becoming more and more popular, and it's a nice city. Everybody speaks English here in Holland. That's for foreigners or that they want to come here. That's always nice. So it's a very beautiful city. The Maas, the river flows through it, so that's also nice. There's a lot of boats. We have a lot of nice bridges as well. So it's basically everybody in Europe should visit Rotterdam once. Don't only go to Amsterdam and coffee shops. Also visit Rotterdam.
Yeah. You're selling the city well. It sounds like my kind of place. Yeah, it sounds like my kind of place. I tend to gravitate to port cities. I'm from Bristol, which is a port in England, and I live in Seville, which is an old port. And one of my favorite cities in the world is Buenos Aires in Argentina. So I love a port city. I think it's in my blood. So I'd love to come to Rotterdam one day and see a match at I would say a legendary stadium in Europe. De Kip, because it's hosted a record 10 UEFA finals. It's always looked a great stadium with a great atmosphere. It was inaugurated, was it in the 1930s it was originally built?
Yeah, I think 1937. I'm not sure about the exact year, but it was built in the 30s.
Okay, so what is it about De Kip that makes it such a special place and has kept UEFA coming back to use it as a venue for finals?
Yeah, I don't know what the decision makers at the UEFA decide to come to Rotterdam so often, but I guess especially when it was built, it was revolutionary. It was very big. It had a capacity of more than 40,000 seats. They expanded later on to 50,000 seats. And for quite a long time, it was the biggest stadium here in Holland. I think in 2000 or something, Ajax built the Amsterdam Arena. We had a lot of big concerts, a lot of big bands going to have the concert over there. But it's a very old tradition stadium. They haven't renewed a lot during all those years, so you can. There is no electric stairs when you have to go to the seats up in the highest part of the stadium. That means you have to have a walk quite a lot of steps, and I'm basically sitting there every week. So it's good for my conditions, so I can do my exercise. So it's an old stadium. Sometimes here in Holland they say it's getting too old. UEFA is not having any new finals or big matches being played here in Holland. The Dutch national team occasionally plays here, but most of the time plays in Amsterdam. So there are discussions already they have been here for 20 years that we either have to renew the stadium or build a new one. But that's getting a lot of opposition and it's quite expensive as well. So for now, it looks like we're staying put. But everybody is waiting for the board of Feyenoord to see what's coming next, because everybody expects that there's a big renovation coming up in the next couple of years, but that is going to take quite some lot of money and quite some time as well. So for now, it has a tradition of an old stadium being close to the pitch. I guess every fan base says that, but we have the best supporters here in Holland. Very. Well, we stand behind the team through thick and thin. Even though we have some success the last couple of years, we were also there when we had terrible seasons. So it's a nice old stadium with a lot of history. Because, like you said, there's been a lot of finals being played here. The final of the Euro Cup in 2000 was in Rotterdam. I think a lot of Aston Villa fans love the venue because that's the place where they won the European Cup for the first time. So it's a place with a lot of history.
Yeah, and Manchester United in 1991 won the Cup Winners' Cup, which was kind of the beginning of their journey on winning all that silverware in the 90s. And yeah, I've seen the kit, I've seen pictures of it, and I've seen it on TV, and it looks like a nice big old school stadium, just my kind of place. And the atmosphere always seems really noisy. I mean, do you think that the atmosphere of the Keep and that comes from the Feyenoord fans is? Can you relate that back to Rotterdam as a city? Do you think it's the port city and everything? It gives it that unique atmosphere.
Yeah, especially the most passionate supporters. They sit behind the goal, and it's often said that all those guys work in the harbor. It's not true because I sit there as well, and I'm not working at the harbor. But you can feel the passion. You can feel the guys that work so hard, stand behind the club. It's their way out every week to stand behind the club and celebrate. Hopefully wins. So I guess you can feel that. You can feel it in the stadium. It's very tense. It's very loud, like you said. And I think that has also to do with the people that basically live in Rotterdam and come from Rotterdam and are hardworking, no nonsense guys.
Okay, very good, very good. Okay, so Feyenoord had its golden era in the 1960s. So when people think of Dutch football, they think of Ajax, they think of Cruyff, and they think of total football and those brilliant sides of the 1970s. Of course, there was another good one in the 80s, and there's been other good sides since. But the classic Netherlands side that people think of is the team of the 70s, Rinus Michels and Cruyff. But it could be argued that Feyenoord laid the groundwork for this, winning so many titles in the 60s and then being the first Dutch team to win the European Cup in 1970.
Yeah. It's a lot of Feyenoord fans feel like it's always been talked about Ajax. It's always about the Ajax success, which of course is the most successful club here in Holland. But when you look at the history, like you said, 1970, the first time we won the European Cup, we beat Celtic in Milan. The groundwork for the further Dutch football. 1974 became semi-finalists, lost it. 1978, once again they lost the final. But the type of football that was played, the total football, which is often called, basically originated from Feyenoord, and especially its coach. We had a coach, Ernst Happel. It's an Austrian guy. Also had success at Bruges and also at Hamburg. He was also the Dutch national coach later on, but he was the coach of the team that won in 1970. And he basically he was a mastermind. He was a mastermind of himself, and lots of people that lived back then and followed the Dutch football said, we always talk about Michels and Cruyff, but we should talk more often about Ernst Happel, the coach, and players like Willem van Hanegem, which also played in the national team, and Wim Jansen, which was the midfielder behind him. So I really hope that people don't only think about Ajax when they talk about the success in the 70s. Because Feyenoord was the first one to win the cup. Then it was Ajax for 3 years in a row that won it. But Feyenoord was the first one. And we had a lot of great players, which are not internationally known, but basically should be known because they were really good back then. Like Willem van Hanegem is not a household name because he basically only played in Holland and a little stint in the US. But if I read the articles about him and if I read the books about him, he was excellent. He was such a great player, but nobody really knows him outside of Holland. Everybody talks about Cruyff, but Willem van Hanegem is one of those players that should be known in the whole football world.
Okay, so Feyenoord were the first and pioneered total football, but Ajax, as you say, sorry to bring it up, but they won 3 European Cups in a row. What why did Ajax manage to kick on, as it were, in Europe and not Feyenoord? Was it solely down to them having Cruyff, who was probably the best player in the world at the time, or was there any other factors there?
No, sometimes we say here in Holland the biggest opponent of Feyenoord is Feyenoord itself. Back then in the 70s, we were the richest club in the world, but we were not smart enough to spend it well. So we spent it on wrong players. We didn't bring in the good players, and that's been a trend for Feyenoord for the last couple of decades. So for us, for younger fans, I'm 42 years old, so I haven't seen play the 70s team. I started watching football when I was like 7-8 years old. It's incredible to believe that we once were the best in the world, but we didn't capitalize on it like Ajax did. Ajax was always basically on top. Of course, they had their bad years as well, and they had their good eras and the little worse eras, but they've always been able to qualify for the best teams. And Feyenoord, for such a long time, we didn't do well. We always went bankrupt in the early 90s, late 80s, almost went bankrupt. But fortunately, we're still here. But yeah, Ajax, especially PSV, because PSV does it as well. They know how to spend the money well, and Feyenoord has been traditionally known for doing it very terribly. Which is the reason that Feyenoord won the UEFA Cup in '74 as well. So it was not only Ajax that won everything, but after that, you see Feyenoord little slipping away, and especially in the '80s. Fortunately, I was too young to watch those years, but then back then, the stadium was hardly filled. There were hardly any people who came to Feyenoord. I said 50,000 capacity. There only came 10,000 to watch the games. But then we were saved, almost went bankrupt, and after that, the popularity picked up again, and the stadium was full every match. And we slowly got back to Ajax and PSV, but we almost disappeared.
Well, before that, so Ajax have their golden period. Feyenoord fall off a little bit after the UEFA Cup win, but the next league title, in a lot of ways, could be argued to be one of the sweetest of all, because Johan Cruyff at Ajax, he goes to Barcelona, various stints in various places, and then he goes back to Ajax, and he ends up having, I think it was a contract dispute with the club, or there was something that he wasn't happy about, and he then decides to go and sign for Feyenoord, which is obviously Ajax's arch rivals. What kind of impact did that have? Because obviously with Cruyff in the team, and also a player people may have heard of, Ruud Gullit, in that side, was Cruyff the catalyst for winning that title? And obviously that did not go down well with Ajax fans or down well in Amsterdam. But how did Feyenoord fans take to Cruyff coming from your strongest rivals?
It's a very good question. I was born in 1983, so I wasn't really there when all this happened. But if I hear the stories about people that were living back then and really followed Feyenoord back then, there's basically two camps. There's one camp that said, "Hey, we won a double and we were the best of Netherlands, so who cares?" There's also a couple of supporters, and there is, I think, a small majority back then that didn't acknowledge the title. They didn't acknowledge the cup win, because they said, "Well, we don't want to win the cup only because of Cruyff." It's not true. Cruyff was a very big part of it. He was back quite old. I think he was 38. Ajax didn't want to give him a new contract under the same conditions, because they said, "Hey, you're too old. You cannot deliver." And he was so angry back then. And then he went to Feyenoord and say, "Hey, let's make a deal, and I'll help you to win the title," which he did. It's the last time we won the double, which is already like 40 years old. So it's way back that we won the cup and the national league. It's not all Feyenoord fans liked him coming to Feyenoord, because they said, "Well, stay in Amsterdam, and if you have a dispute, go somewhere else." But now 40 years later, I think most of the fans would say, "Hey, it was a big baller move, and it panned out well because we won the title and we won the cup as well."
Yeah, I'm a Bristol City fan, and a few years ago on transfer deadline day, we signed Bristol Rovers top scorer, Matty Taylor, and the general feeling of our fan base was just brilliant. We've just taken their best player, so that was celebrated. But yeah, some fans can get a bit angry about that. But I mean, personally, if it was me, I was a Feyenoord fan, I'd see that as a big kick in the teeth for Ajax. I'd be enjoying that. Okay, so obviously there's the huge rivalry with Ajax. I mean, how strong is that? I mean, how nasty can it get? And is this rivalry purely on the basis of two big clubs, successful clubs on the pitch, or does it go deeper? Is this down to a rivalry between cities and maybe an outlook on life?
Yeah, I think the rivalry is bigger than just the clubs. It's also the working class against the not working class, like we like to say it here in Rotterdam. It's the two biggest clubs. Unfortunately, not the two clubs that won the most titles, because Ajax won the most by far. Then it's PSV, and then it's only Feyenoord. Like I said, it has to do with the poor 80s in which PSV became better and better and better. But it's huge. It's massive. We can travel to all the away games. Unlike besides one game, we cannot go to Amsterdam, and their fans are not welcome here in Rotterdam. That's been here for I think 15 or 20 years that the fans are not welcome here. So it's big. It's very big. If you ask any Feyenoord supporter, they would use the word hate. That they really hate Ajax and they really hate Amsterdam. So it's a big as rivalry. Yeah.
Yeah, and you touched on PSV. Now, for some listeners may know, some listeners may not. PSV is a club based in Eindhoven, second most successful in terms of titles. But I mean, their stadium doesn't have the biggest of capacity, and they're owned by Philips. Obviously, everyone will know Philips, very famous company, who have kind of been putting money in. And as you say, Feyenoord being its own worst enemy. Philips have run PSV quite well. They're using their business acumen there to bring success for PSV. What's the rivalry like between Feyenoord and PSV? Obviously not as much as Ajax, but what's the connection there?
Yeah, there is a rivalry as well, simply because it's the big three here in Holland. It's Ajax, PSV, and Feyenoord. Most of the time, it's 1, 2, and 3. Besides those three teams. Basically, they've become more successful than us, so that's a part of the rivalry that we don't really like it that they took our spot, because we still think we're at least second team in Holland, if not the first. But they outsmarted us. They've been outsmarting us for the last couple of 30 years. It's smartly managed the club. Even though PSV, Philips doesn't really own them right now. They once owned them, but I think already for 20, 25 years they're not owned by Philips. But there's still a lot of sponsorship by Philips. Still feel a lot of involvement of Philips. So there is a rivalry, but not as heated as Ajax. We can travel to the Eindhoven Stadium, and they can come to our place, and it always goes well. So it's not as big as what we have with Ajax. And they don't like that, because they really want to have the rivalry as well. But everybody still here in Holland talks about the big two. It's Feyenoord and Ajax. And, basically, they're the third team. Also, when you look at supporters, Feyenoord and Ajax are the biggest clubs. Most of the people here in Holland either support Ajax or Feyenoord. And PSV is basically in the south, which is where they're from. They're popular over there. But here in the west, you won't see a lot of PSV supporters.
Yeah, it's my club, Bristol City, has a friendship with Willem II. And so I've met quite a lot of Willem II fans over the years, because they've come to Bristol, and our fans have gone to Tilburg, and they seem to particularly dislike PSV over anyone else, and they're they're in the south as well. So yeah, I think they see PSV as dominating their region. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a lot of teams in the south. So a lot of teams in the south either like Feyenoord or like Ajax, but most of the time hate PSV. But overall, Ajax is the first most hated team in Holland, and Feyenoord, I guess, the second.
Yeah. Most fans don't like success. It's the same here with a lot of fans with Real Madrid and Barcelona. Yeah. Okay. So you've got Ajax and PSV, but like Rotterdam, you also share with Sparta Rotterdam, who I believe Louis van Gaal played for. I might be wrong on that.
Correct.
Yeah,
that's correct.
Louis van Gaal played for. Yeah, and also a club called Excelsior. Now, what's the rivalry like with those two? Because Feyenoord is so much bigger, and they've got other fish to fry, as it were. Is there any feeling towards those clubs, or is it a one-way thing?
It's basically non-existing. Sparta is the oldest professional team here in Holland. They don't like Feyenoord. They love Ajax. They have a partnership with Ajax as well. Lots of the talents, like Johan, who plays for Chelsea right now, go from the youth from Ajax the youth of Sparta to Ajax. But there is no rivalry whatsoever. We're playing them this Sunday. They don't like us. And Excelsior was basically our friend club for a couple of years. We had a partnership with them. We exchanged players for quite a lot of time. That partnership ended, but Excelsior is such a small team. It's fantastic that they play in the highest league. Because if you look at their stadium, if you look at their finances, if you look at their popularity, it's a team that should never play in the Eredivisie, but they're doing so well for, basically the last 20 years. They played in the Eredivisie so many years. Sometimes they get relegated, but they get back up again in 2 or 3 years. So it's huge respect for what they do at Excelsior. But there is no rivalry whatsoever. Everybody can go to the stadium without any problems if we play Sparta, or we can go to the Sparta stadium without any problems. But they don't like us a lot because we're the bigger brother in Rotterdam, and we were again once the more successful club. But there's no rivalry whatsoever.
So how is it defined in Rotterdam as to who your team is? I mean, is it a case of generally most people support Feyenoord because they're the biggest club, or is there anything based around class or political affiliation or the part of the city you're from?
If you look at the history, that is the case. Sparta is the posh club which the rich people like to join and to support. Feyenoord was the working class club, but that's way back. That's like 100 years ago. That's not the case anymore. Sparta is based in the west of Rotterdam. Feyenoord is based in the south of Rotterdam. So we always say it's the west against the south. So I guess everything underneath the mass is most of them is Feyenoord supporter. There are some supporters for Sparta, but Sparta is very small compared to Feyenoord. So most of the time it's basically parents being Sparta fans telling their children go support Sparta, or Ajax, people from Ajax that have a season ticket for Sparta that live in Rotterdam. They don't want to go to Amsterdam. So, but yeah, that's basically it.
And what's the fan culture like at Feyenoord? Is there an ultras group, an ultras movement, and what's the vibe around that?
Yeah, we for quite some time we didn't really have an ultras group. There is some friction at with all the supporters because it seems like there's an ultra group coming, and not everybody likes that. We like the part that we don't have any drums, we don't have any orchestrated singing. We just follow the football match and do whatever happens on the pitch, and we react to that. Mm-hmm. But there's a small group getting more and more popular at the Kuip. Which it also had the season ticket holders behind the goal, which are the most loyal fans. But there's no traditional ultra group at Feyenoord.
Yeah, sounds very much like football in England. Okay, so in the late 90s, Feyenoord were reasonably successful. I can remember them in the Champions League, etc. But there was an 18-year title drought. What happened there? So how did Feyenoord go from in the late 90s, regularly in the Champions League, winning the Dutch league, everything looking good, and then suddenly 18 years without winning the title?
Yeah, it's the same story like I told before. It's mismanagement, not being able to sell to buy good players, selling. Like we had for one season, we had Dirk Kuyt, who went to Liverpool, and we had Salomon Kalou, who went to Chelsea. They were the best attack in Holland. We sold them for quite a lot of money, and everybody at Feyenoord was like, okay, who are we getting back to replace those guys? And after a lot of names were being dropped, everybody was like, okay, we're getting this guy. At the last day of the transfer deadline, we got the reserve striker of Ajax, Charisteas, the Greek striker who also won the European Championship. That's basically Feyenoord in a nutshell. Every time money comes in, we hope that we're getting good players, but most of the time we are getting terrible players. And the team which ended the 18-year drought is basically quite a cheap team that we bought. All the players that we got were bought or were either players from the youth or players bought for like 3 or 4 million at max from smaller teams like Sparta or Groningen or Vitesse. So it was finally we did it. Giovanni van Bronckhorst, the coach back then, also a player who used to play for Feyenoord, ended the drought, which was, I still think, I have 2 sons, and I'm happy that I'm a father, but that day, 18 years, not winning the trophy, is still the best day in my life. That's to end the drought and became champion again.
Yeah, I can imagine it was quite a party that night. Well, speaking of players, who would you say are the biggest legends of Feyenoord? Who are the most important players you've had in your history?
Now, I already mentioned his name, Willem van Hanegem, a midfielder that played for most of the time for Feyenoord, also a little stint at AZ. Went to the United States for I think 1 year. But Willem van Hanegem also played for the Dutch national team. Is in my opinion the second best footballer we ever produced here in Holland after Johan Cruyff. Ruud Gullit is another one, even though he left on. He went to PSV after Feyenoord because Feyenoord couldn't afford him anymore. We also have a player which won the championship in 1970 was Koen Moulijn. He played for 18 years for Feyenoord. He was very popular. He's still very popular. Last week we not celebrated, but he died 15 years ago, and every year all the supporters take a moment to remember him and talk about Koen Moulijn. So those are the 3 players that should be mentioned. But throughout the years, we also had a lot of other players. Robin van Persie, of course, who is the coach right now, didn't have his prime at Feyenoord because he left at quite a young age to Arsenal and came back at the end of his career. But Robin van Persie, Giovanni van Bronckhorst, he spent more time at Feyenoord, won the championship as a coach as well. So those are some players that really we're really proud of and really shaped our Feyenoord DNA.
Yeah, there's some very, very, very good players there. Okay, so the last title came under Arne Slot, who eventually went to Liverpool. What of the future for Feyenoord now? So looking at the moment, second in the league, but way behind PSV in terms. So it looks like the title is gone this season. Where you said before that the biggest enemy of Feyenoord is Feyenoord. In the way the club's run. What do you think of the future of Feyenoord? Do you think the club's going in the right direction, or are you concerned about the future?
I am very concerned about the future because when we had Arne Slot, the best coach, I think, is Dutch right now. He did so well at Feyenoord. He came in after we became 5th in the league, and the year after he brought us to the Conference League final. The year after we became champions, and the year after we won the cup, and then he left, of course, to Liverpool. He was great. He was fantastic, and he basically turned the organization around and made everything about winning, and everything made more sense. Before we made a lot of decisions which we as a fans couldn't understand. And Arne Slot, smart guy, did the right things. Back then we thought, okay, now we're finally back at Ajax and PSV levels, and now we can compete with them for the next couple of years to at least win the title every 2 years, every 3 years maybe, but not every 5 years or 18 years or long droughts. The second year of Arne Slot, the first year after Arne Slot left, well, we became third after Ajax, who had a terrible team, and we had so many injuries last year. And now the coach we had then, he was replaced by Robin van Persie. Everybody hoped he would do very, 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 very well. But the honest, realistic answer is, at the moment, he's not doing that well. We still hope he does better. We had I think 12 or 13 points we were in front of Ajax, but since November we cannot seem to win any matches. We won 3 matches in 13 games, and now we only are 3 points in front of Ajax. The second place means automatic placing in the Champions League. So it's big that we qualify for the Champions League, but every Feyenoord fan is very scared that Ajax will overtake us, even though Ajax still has a crappy team and should never overtake us. But at the moment we're slipping and we're falling down and still coping with a lot of injuries. And well, we're seeing that Robin van Persie is a beginning coach, which makes also mistakes of a beginning coach. So we're hoping that we will get better next couple of months, but the realistic view at this moment is that everybody's very scared of how this season is going to end.
Well, who knows? You may find another Arne Slot. I certainly hope so. So one final question to end on. So if any listeners are listening to the podcast and thinking of going to Rotterdam and going to a Feyenoord game, why should the listeners go and see a match at the Kip of Feyenoord?
You probably hear this from every fan base, but I'm very sure that we have the best supporters here in Holland. We are very loud, we are very proud, we are always there. The stadium is basically always sold out. Even in the years that we didn't do that well, because we have a drought of 18 years, but even then, in those years, the stadium was always sold out. It's an old stadium which looks to be renewed in a couple of years. It still has the ambience and the feeling of an old stadium. Supporters very local, very very loyal, and very standing behind the team. Also placed in one of the most beautiful cities in Holland, Rotterdam. So it's a nice way to go. There's a lot of tourist attractions in Rotterdam, a lot of sightseeing that you can do. It has a very nice skyline, Rotterdam. Well, the harbor is maybe not the nicest part, but it's basically a little bit further outside the town. But there's a lot of things to do in Rotterdam, and of course, when you go to Rotterdam, you should try to visit a Feyenoord match, because well, it's always fun, and Feyenoord at home is very hard to beat, even though this season is not that good. But we normally win at the Kuip, which is of course fun to see. And I've brought in a lot of foreign friends. I've lived in Dubai for a couple of years, and I always talked about Feyenoord. They went with me to a Feyenoord match. And basically, all those guys who also went to matches in all other countries. All those guys say, "Hey, wow! I was hopeful that it was worth the trip," and everybody says it really was worth the trip, because these supporters are mad. These supporters are crazy. So you should visit us.
Yeah, definitely. I've seen Feyenoord on TV, and it does seem like a great atmosphere. So to the listeners, you've heard Johan. Get yourself to Rotterdam, enjoy the city, and go see a Feyenoord match. Great atmosphere in a really nice old school stadium. Okay, that's it for today's episode. Thanks very much for Johan for coming on to speak about Feyenoord. And like and subscribe, and you can find us on all the social media through the links on the description. And Johan, is there anywhere where anyone can follow your podcast?
Yeah, but it's in Dutch. So if anybody is Dutch, you can try to listen to Kangaloo podcast, but it's in Dutch. So if you're not Dutch, I would not recommend it, because unless you want to learn Dutch, but those are quite long podcasts. But it's a Kangaloo podcast.
Okay, well, we do have some listeners in the Netherlands, so you never know. Okay, thanks very much, Johan, and we'll see you on the next episode.